Hello everyone, welcome to this new lecture in our program on American literature. My name is Fuzi Slisli and I am your instructor. Today, our lecture, number 10, we look at William Faulkner's A Rose for Emily. A Rose for Emily was the first short story that Faulkner published in a major magazine. It appeared in April 30, 1930. In the issue of Forum magazine. This story is among the most widely read and highly praised of Faulkner's work. Beyond its lurid appeal and somewhat gothic atmosphere, Faulkner's ghost story, as he once called it, gestures to broader ideas, including the tension between the North and the South, complexities of a changing world order, disappearing realms of gentility and aristocracy, and rigid social constraints placed on women. Ultimately, it is the story's chilling portrait of aberrant psychology and necrophilia that draws readers into the dusty world of Emily Grierson. Maybe I will need to explain the word necrophilia, maybe. Necrophilia is simply the attraction to a dead corpse, basically. And that's what this story, in a way, plays on. Attraction to a dead corpse, right? A dead body. So there is a chilling portrait of aberrant psychology and necrophilia. And it is that draws the reader into the dusty world of Emily Grierson, the main character in the story. The story is divided into 5 sections. In section 1, the narrator recalls the time of Emily Grierson's death and how the entire town attended her funeral in her home, which no stranger had entered for more than 10 years. In a once elegant, upscale neighborhood, Emily's house is the last vestige of the grandeur of a lost era. Colonel Sartoris, the town's previous mayor, had suspended Emily's tax responsibilities to the town after her father's death, justifying the action by claiming that Mr. Grierson had once lent the community a significant sum of money. As new town leaders take over, they make an unsuccessful attempt to get Emily to resume paying taxes. When members of the Board of Aldermen pay her a visit in the dusty and antiquated parlor, Emily reasserts the fact that she is not required to pay taxes in Jefferson and that the officials should talk to Colonel Sartoris about the matter. However, at that point, he has been dead for almost a decade. She asks her servant, Toby, to show them out. In section 2, the narrator describes a time 30 years earlier when Emily resists another official inquiry on behalf of the town leaders, when the townspeople detect a powerful odor emanating from the property. Her father has just died, and Emily has been abandoned by the man whom the townsfolk believed Emily was going to marry. As complaints mount, Judge Stevens, the mayor at the time, decided to have lime sprinkled along the foundation of the Griersons' home in the middle of the night. Within a couple of weeks, the odor subsides, but the townspeople begin to pity the increasingly reclusive Emily, remembering how her great aunt had succumbed to insanity. The townspeople have always believed that the Griersons thought too highly of themselves. With Emily's father driving off the main suitors deemed not good enough to marry his daughter. With no offer of marriage in sight, Emily is still single by the time she turns 30. The day after Mr. Grierson's death, the women of the town call on Emily to offer their condolences. Meeting them at the door, Emily states that her father is not dead, a charade that she keeps up for 3 days. She finally turns her father's body over for burial. In section 3, the narrator describes a long illness that Emily suffers after this incident. The summer after her father's death, the town contracts workers to pave the sidewalks, and a construction company under the direction of northerner Homer Barron, he comes from the north, and is awarded the job. Homer soon becomes a popular figure in town and is seen taking Emily on buggy rides on Sunday afternoons, which scandalizes the town and increases the condescension and pity they have for Emily. They feel that she is forgetting her family pride and becoming involved with a man beneath her station. As the affair continues and Emily's reputation is further compromised, she goes to the drugstore to purchase arsenic, a powerful poison. She is required by law to reveal how she will use the arsenic. She offers no explanation, and the package arrives at her house labeled for rats. In section 4, the narrator describes the fear that some of the townspeople have that Emily will use the poison to kill herself. Her potential marriage to Homer seems increasingly unlikely, despite their continued Sunday ritual. The more outraged women of the town insist that the Baptist minister talk with Emily. After his visit, he never speaks of what happened and swears that he'll never go back. So the minister's wife writes to Emily's 2 cousins in Alabama, who arrive for an extended stay. Because Emily orders a silver toilet set, monogrammed with Homer's initials, talk of the couple's marriage resumes. Homer, absent from town, is believed to be preparing for Emily's move to the north or avoiding Emily's intrusive relatives. After the cousins' departure, Homer enters the Greason home one evening and then is never seen again. Holed up in the house, Emily grows plump and gray. Despite the occasional lesson she gives in china painting, her door remains closed to outsiders. In what becomes an annual ritual, Emily refuses to acknowledge the tax bill. She eventually closes up the top floor of the house. Except for the occasional glimpse of her in the window, nothing is heard from her until her death at the age of 74. Only the servant is seen going in and out of the house. In section 5, the narrator describes what happens after Emily dies. Emily's body is laid out in the parlor, and the women, town's elders, and 2 cousins attend the service. After some time has passed, the door to a sealed upstairs room that had not been opened for 40 years is broken down by the townspeople. The room is frozen in time, with the items for an upcoming wedding and a man's suit laid out. Homer Barron's body is stretched on the bed as well, in an advanced state of decay. The onlookers then notice the indentation of a head in the pillow besides Homer's body and a long strand of Emily's gray hair on the pillow. So basically she killed him and kept him in her bedroom and was sleeping next to a dead body for 30 years. The main characters, Emily Grierson, the object of fascination in the story. She's an eccentric recluse. Emily is a mysterious figure who changes from a vibrant and hopeful young girl to a cloistered and secretive old woman. Devastated and alone after her father's death, she is an object of pity for the townspeople. After a life of having potential suitors rejected by her father, she spends time after his death with a newcomer, Homer Barron, although the chances of his marrying her decrease as the years pass. Bloated and pallid in her later years, her hair turns steel gray. She ultimately poisons Homer and steals and seals his corpse into an upstairs room. Homer Barron, a foreman from the north. Homer is a large man with a dark complexion, a booming voice, and a light-colored eyes. A gruff and demanding boss, he wins many admirers in Jefferson because of his gregarious nature, his happy nature, and good sense of humor. He develops an interest in Emily and takes her for Sunday drives in a yellow-wheeled buggy. Despite his attributes, the town people view him as a poor, if not scandalous, choice for a mate. He disappears in Emily's house and decomposes in an attic bedroom after she kills him. Then we have Judge Stevens, a mayor of Jefferson. 80 years old, Judge Stevens attempts to delicately handle the complaints about the smell emanating from the Greasons' property. To be respectful of Emily's pride and former position in the community, he and the alderman decide to sprinkle lime on the property in the middle of the night. Mr. Grierson, Emily's father, Mr. Grierson is a controlling, looming presence, even in death, and the community clearly sees his lasting influence over Emily. He deliberately thwarts Emily's attempt to find a husband in order to keep her under his control. We get glimpses of him in the story, in the crayon portrait kept on the gilt-edged easel in the parlor, and silhouetted in the doorway, horsewhip in hand, having chased off another of Emily's suitors. Another character is Toby. He is Emily's servant. Toby, his voice supposedly rusty from lack of use, is the only lifeline that Emily has to the outside world. For years, he dutifully cares for her and tends to her needs. Eventually, the townspeople stop grilling him for information about Emily. After Emily's death, he walks out the back door and never returns again. Well, this is an introduction, in a way, to this story. We simply did we talked about the summary and the main characters here. In our coming lecture, in the next lecture, number 11, we will do an analysis of this story because there is so much in it that it deserves 2 lectures instead of 1. Thank you for coming. I hope you enjoyed this lecture, and I shall see you in the coming one. Have a wonderful day. Aha,